everybody, and welcome to Books Unbound, the podcast where we unbind books to get to their hearts with your hosts, us. It's Ariel and
Raeleen, and we're invisible.
At night. Yes, invisible Raeleen.
I'm a ghost today.
At night and in the dark. Actually, it looks really sunny where you are.
It is so bright. It is fully summer right now. It's going to be bright for hours.
Yeah, but here it is now officially fully dark. It's 9:44 p.m.
Whoa.
It's fully dark. And what can I see out this window? Just the bright, beautiful lights of Halifax. Woo, ooh, ooh. I am currently in my brother's apartment, borrowing my brother's microphone. So if I did the settings wrong, I'm sorry, CJ, and to all my faithful listeners.
Oh, God.
Why are we doing an audio-only episode today? That's on me. Because I wanted to.
And you deserved it. And you know what? Frankly, I think I deserve it too.
You do deserve it too. As you guys know, a couple years ago, we switched to doing video episodes, and we love it. We love getting to hang out with you guys in person. I know that, like, there's a podcast that I listen to, Waveform Podcast, that I only ever listen to it as a video podcast, which is like, why do I need to have the video if literally I'm walking around? But it's just nice to have the video portion as well. Yeah. So I get why people like it, and we like doing it, and we like being able to show stuff, etc., etc. But as you know, because we've talked about it before, it is so much more work. Like, it's not just a little, it's not like, oh, we're just adding video. No, it's so much more work.
Yeah.
Setting up the right shot and getting it synced properly and getting the lighting right and getting all of our files synced up, like, because Raeleen's camera runs out every 24 minutes, so we have to reset it, and so it's just a whole song and dance, and we have to look nice.
Yeah, and we have to, like, I'm slunched over. Slunched? That's not even a word, but I'm slouched over right now.
I feel it.
My hair is not looking cute. We're slunched. You know, I'm probably look sweaty right now. Like, who knows? Like, which is, especially after like a full day of work, it's really nice to not have to be on visually.
Yes,
it's nice
exactly.
to slunch.
So we're doing an old school audio only episode today because over the last few days we've been hosting my partner's sister, beautiful Maureen. Maureen has been visiting us, which has been wonderful. She is such a cutie pie, and she listens to the podcast.
Hi, Maureen.
I know. I love Maureen so much. I sent you some photos of us with Maureen.
Yeah, you guys are
a couple days ago. And basically she was visiting, and she was going to be here all day yesterday. And so I asked Raeleen, can we move the recording to Tuesday? And I was like, and you know what? Let's just do audio only, because I knew I was going to be in Halifax. I wasn't going to have my camera, and the idea of setting it all up, and I knew I would be tired. Yeah. I was like, let's not go through that. And you are now going to have to do it after work. And so now we're going to be rushing to, like, and it's going to be dark. No, we couldn't do it.
So too many hurdles.
It's just the dulcet tones of our Canadian accents today. Quick, say something Canadian. Hockey.
Oh, where are all the beavers, You know, just a classic Canadian sentence that I always say.
I can't believe I said hockey and Terry Fox. Which,
I didn't hear Terry Fox. That's hilarious.
Love Terry Fox.
That's
huge
fantastic.
Fan.
That reminds me, actually, Kyle and I when we went to Vancouver, like last weekend or the weekend before, there were some people doing what appeared to be a cross-country run. Like, they were parked on the side of the freeway. And then after, like, on our way back, we saw the same van in a different city. Like, they had gone half an hour by car.
They kept
so
going.
I'm like, I think someone might be doing a Terry Fox, which I thought was really cool.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
I will now tell people who Terry Fox is.
Yeah, I wanted to mention it on the podcast. I was like, we need to tell the people about Terry Fox.
Terry Fox, one of our national heroes, was a Canadian young man who was diagnosed with cancer, and he decided to raise money by running the entire length of Canada. And as you know, you're the second largest country in the world. We're huge. Yeah. It's an insane idea. What was he thinking? He was thinking that he could make a difference, and god damn it, he did.
Yeah.
I actually just saw a post the other day that was talking about like how much money Terry Fox and is it Michael J. Fox is his name, right? From
the actor
Marty McFly.
Yeah, yeah.
How are they both foxes? I didn't realize that. Am I crazy here? Anyways, they've both raised so much money for health research in Canada. But yeah, anyways, Terry Fox raised a lot of money. And partway through his run, his cancer got way worse. He ran this marathon, which was called the Marathon for Hope. He ran it with one amputated leg. And he just went across the country raising money and accepting donations. And very sadly, he died while running across the country. He had to stop and then he passed away. And so growing up, I'm wondering if you did this
Terry
too
Fox
out in BC. Yeah, Terry Fox.
100%.
Right? I think
it was an annual thing at my school.
Annual thing at our school where we would all like run a couple laps of our field. In my case, it was of our field or whatever you had.
We had a forest trail that we would run. It was so cool.
Very BC.
Yeah.
I was in Ontario at the time, so I ran around a cow field.
Oh, I mean, that's good too.
That's so
that's
funny.
Good too.
And you had to bring, I think it was a toonie. I think everyone had to bring a toonie for that. And like, obviously you could donate more, but they wanted all the kids to bring a toonie. And then, God, this really is a Canadian
This is so Canadian. Does anyone know what a toonie is?
To donate money to cancer research. So anyways, he is like a national hero and you can go to a statue. Have you ever been to a statue in Ontario?
No, I have not been to Ontario.
Oh yeah, I always forget that for some reason. Yeah. It's the memorial. I'm trying to remember. Oh, it's in Thunder Bay. It's this massive, it's such a beautiful monument. And I believe that's where he had to stop running. Oh. That's why they placed it there.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just a really, really beautiful monument that I've gone to visit a couple times. Because I've driven across Canada more than once, which is insane when you think about it. But I've gotten to visit the memorial a couple of times. And I remember when we were driving out to move to BC, we were like, Connor had never been to the memorial. So I was like, oh, we should stop there because it's a really beautiful rest stop. And there's bathrooms and stuff there as well. Damn. Whenever I think about Terry Fox too much, I want to cry. It's just so beautiful. Yeah. He's such a hero. Yeah. And he had a really cute haircut.
He sure did. That's true.
That's awesome. All right. Speaking of running, have you been running around?
I have been running around.
Interesting going on?
A little bit. Yeah, we actually, my friends and I, me and my two pals, went on a little road trip. Just a small one. Just a little one. Woo. Just to a town that's a few hours away from where we live. And it's this little town called Princeton. And Ariel will know about Princeton. I'll tell you guys about Princeton.
Will.
Yeah. So a few years ago, when Ariel was moving to Nova Scotia, we wanted to meet up one last time before she left because we were the closest we could possibly have ever been. We were like 4 hours away from each other by car in BC. And so we were like, let's meet halfway. So we met up in Princeton just to and Princeton is this really small town that's kind of, I would describe it as a place that's on the way to something else. It's not really a destination. It's very small. It's basically one road and like a highway going through it. So it's this very small town. We met at an A&W and we exchanged some things. You gave me a plant and some books, I think, and then
you killed.
Yeah, but that was your mistake. Now you know not to trust me with a plant.
When I look up Princeton, British Columbia, a monument of a moose comes up.
Okay, yeah, so this is the thing that I learned when we went this time. Well, back to the beginning of the story, I guess. When Ariel and I went there, we discovered this crystal shop that has like fossils and crystals and all sorts of cool things. And so that was the thing that really stuck in my mind about Princeton was like, oh, they have this cool crystal shop. Apparently it's like the biggest one around. I don't know if it's in the whole of Canada, but it's pretty big. And so I was like, I told my friends about this a little while ago and they were like, we have to go. Like the two of them really like crystals and fossils and stuff. So they really wanted to go. And so I was like, sure, let's go. It's not that far. We can just go. So we went on a little trip. And what I discovered when we got there is that there are tons of statues around Princeton. Like that's something that they're known for. They're like, I can't remember. I looked it up. It was like the statue capital of BC or something. Like it's what they're proud of. But it was very cute. It was a fun, like we didn't really have a plan when we went other than going to the crystal shop, but we were like, let's just walk around and discover. So we went on a Saturday this past weekend, and it was lucky that we went on Saturday because there was so many like cute little things happening. So there was like a little kind of like market happening like in the town square. It was really giving Gilmore Girls vibes. Like,
amazing.
It was that perfect, like, such a small town where you just walk around because there's not really that much to see. Like, you don't really have to drive in this town. That's how small it is. So I was like, oh, this is cool. This is really cool. Like, there's a little library. There's a visitor center, which we actually went into, and I bought a sweater. I'm going to wear the sweater as soon as it gets cold enough so that you guys can see it, because it is very cute. It's awesome. It's like town of Princeton on it. It's mint green. It's very cozy. But yeah, that was kind of my funny purchase of the day. I was like, I'm going to buy a sweater for this town.
I also love that because people are going to think you mean Princeton University in the US, but you mean Princeton, the tiny town in BC. I love that as a reference.
Yeah, like it's so cute. And it has the another 2,000 I know, it's town. Like, that's the thing that's funny too, is like when I say it's like my Princeton sweater, it does sound like it's a university thing, but then it's not, which is extra funny to me, just awesome. In my own little head. But the sweater is so cute. It has like 2 little chairs and like a lake behind it, and then one of their like taglines is where friends and rivers meet, I think is what it is. And so it says that on it's just all very quaint, and
we literally are friends who have met in Princeton.
No, I'm just mad we didn't meet at a river. That would have been perfect. But yeah, when we went to the visitor center, because my friend was like, let's just really milk this day, like let's just do as much as we can here. So she went in and was like, I'd like a map, please. And so she got a map from the lady, and then I was like, oh, I'm gonna ask her if there's any places to buy books around here, knowing that there probably isn't. And so I was like, just let me know where we can go. And she was like, oh yeah, like there's a Shoppers Drug Mart if you want to go buy like new books, or you could go to the library, they have a small selection of books there. And I was like, library? So we went into the library, and it was the cutest little library ever, like just so tiny, a tiny little section to buy books, but like lots of toys for kids. They even had a section, like a table area that had like craft supplies, like they had yarn and like stuff for needle felting, like they had all sorts of cool stuff. So I was like, I wish I lived in this town just for this like vibe that this library has.
Yeah.
But it was so cute. There was like a little kind of like art gallery and shop right next to the library. So we went and looked in there. And then there was a deer drinking out of a water fountain right outside the shop. It was magical.
Okay.
Yeah, we were like, hey, buddy, what you doing here? And the lady in the shop was like, this is not good. They're pests. Like, they're it's not good to have them in town, but it was very cute. So we were overjoyed just to see it. And
you had an incredible Princeton day.
Yeah, so it was really good. But then our other part of the plan was like, after we do all of our looking around and stuff, we were gonna hit up a lake or a river of some kind. And so on the way back home, we stopped at Manning Park, which is this big like camping kind of area, but there's also a lake. So we went in there and we swam around, which was great. But then the story takes a little bit of a dark turn. Not actually, I'm being dramatic, but we were swimming, right? Having a good time. We had some lunch, and then we went back and, swam a little bit more. But then we were kind of just like sitting in the shallows, just kind of like chatting and, just kind of biding our time until it was time to leave. And then Julia was kind of like looking in the water, like trying to find rocks and stuff. And at one point she just screams and like jumps out. And I was like, what? She was like, I just saw a little black worm. And I was like, Julia, that sounds like a leech. And she was like, no, I think it was just a worm. I was like, a black worm? Like, are you sure? And so then we were kind of like, all right, it's time to go anyway. Whatever, it's time to go. And then we get home. I'm looking down at my sock because I'm wearing socks and like shoes, whatever. There was a blob of blood on my foot.
Oh my God.
And I was like, what's that from? And I peel off my sock. There was a leech inside.
That's the creepiest thing you've ever said out loud.
Horrifying?
That's horrifying. That for hours it was drinking your blood.
I know, but it was dead. Like I squished it with my shoes, I guess. But it was like on top of my ankle. It was so weird. And I was like, guys,
creepy.
It was a leech. And yeah, we discovered that the problem was that they like it when you hover in the shallows of water. So I'm never going to do that again.
You know what? This is so funny because do you remember last week we were talking about how we don't feel like we can just go into any water.
Oh,
like
yeah,
we
that's
should
true.
we should
I
as
was
humans
overly
just
confident.
be able to enjoy water. And then here you are, attacked by a leech.
But I was so scared when I discovered that. I was like, are there any more on me? Luckily there weren't, but I was really scared. I was really scared
That's
for a little bit. I
very
was like,
creepy.
where could they be?
I go to a local swimming place nearish my house, and I thought I saw something that could be a leech, but like it was like literally I was like out of the corner of my eye kind of a situation.
Yeah.
But then I got home and I was like, I'm gonna look up leeches in Nova Scotia.
Yeah.
And it was talking about how like most fresh water in North America has leeches, and that they are 100% harmless to humans. Like
yeah, like we didn't even notice it. It was only because I saw it with my eyes that I even knew it was happening.
Totally. But like, so no one should worry. You should go swimming anyways and make friends with all of the leeches. I think the reason that I'm scared of leeches is wasn't there a whole leeches episode? Yeah. There is a leeches episode of Series of Unfortunate Events.
Oh, that does ring a bell.
Aren't they what gets Aunt Josephine?
The leeches! Yeah. I can remember Meryl Streep saying it now. I'm thinking of the movie. That's true. Yeah, they're
exactly.
terrifying. They're like sprinting through the water. Like they're like really crazy leeches.
Like little bullets.
And in Stand By Me, that's another big scene in Stand By Me that I grew up watching.
Totally.
So luckily the leech was really small. I was expecting leeches to be like these big honking things, but it was just like, it was pretty tiny. But yeah.
Maybe it was almost cute?
It was almost cute if it hadn't been attached to my leg. Like, that ruined it for me a little bit. And it was squished and dead, creepy. Which was really gross.
Oh my god!
It was nasty.
Whoa.
Yeah.
You know
but
what?
Other than that,
This
it was a great day.
It's a pretty Canadian podcast. I'm enjoying this. There's experiences with wildlife, talking of Canadian heroes.
Yeah.
Love it. This is the best episode.
But yeah, and all the statues were great. I saw the moose statue. I saw a ram. There was an elk statue, I think, as well. There was lots of fun things. It was really cool. There was a bear statue, but it was like in a construction zone, so we couldn't take a picture with it. We took a picture with every statue we could find.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love that. I also went swimming yesterday.
Oh, nice.
I guess that wasn't yesterday for you, but I went yesterday. Still kind of felt like it was part of the weekend because it was the last day that Maureen was here.
Yeah.
And we realized we had enough time to go swimming. It was so funny. We were gonna do something else, and we were at lunch, and I was like, I need to go to the washroom. And so I went to the washroom, and when I came back, everyone was like, we're going to the lake. I was like, what? And they're like, we decided we want to go to the lake. And I'm like, this is the best day of my life. I love going to the lake.
I know. I would go to the lake every day if I could.
Yeah.
It's just a little too
So
far.
we rushed home. I just threw on my bathing suit, and then we rushed over to the lake. And so it was my first time going swimming at this lake. It's called Long Lake, which I'm sure everyone in Halifax knows because it's like a very local to here lake. But it was beautiful. It was so beautiful. Nice. And I got to go out and swim, and at first I was like, maybe I won't get my hair wet. And then I stepped into the water, and it was the perfect temperature, and I was like, I'm a mermaid!
Yeah, in the summertime, there is never going to be a moment where I go in the water and don't just fully dive in. Like, I'm just like, you know what? It's summer. Like, who cares about my hair?
The reason I was like trying to, for a moment, save my hair was because we had the final dinner of Connor's family reunion that night.
Yeah.
Or at 5 p.m. And it was, I think it was 3 p.m. when I was like walking into the lake.
That's a risky moment for you.
It was risky. So I was like, maybe I won't get my hair wet. I'll just like paddle, like, you know, splash around and it'll still be really nice. But then once I got in the cool waters, I was like, no. I am one with the sea. Yeah. And I just swam around so happy and content, hair be damned.
Yeah. It feels so
And then I will say, okay, this is not a humble brag. It's just a brag. My hair dried perfectly curly and beautiful.
Amazing.
And then I was at the restaurant, and one of Connor's cousins was like, you're gorgeous. And I was like, I came out of a lake.
I was Swamp queen.
I'm a swamp queen. I felt like one with nature, actually. I was like
wonderful.
so amazed. It was crazy. That's never happened to me before. It was
Like
so
what are
funny.
the chances?
What the hell are the chances? Who has ever said to me out loud in front of my face, like literally said, "You're gorgeous"? Like that never happens.
Yeah.
And it came when I was so worried that my hair was all frinked up. But nature wouldn't do that to me.
Yeah,
man.
you should have seen how I looked after coming out of the lake. My hair looked way worse.
Oh, it was crazy, but it was really beautiful. But yeah, so my weekend was a lot of fun taking Maureen around to all of our favorite Halifax spots. She was here for basically for 5 days. We had 2 days in Halifax, and we were just showing her all of our favorite locations and shops and things. But then we spent 2 days in kind of rural-y New Brunswick, Lowell, Nova Scotia, at the family reunion, which was up in the valley. And I had time to visit a bookshop I'd never been to before.
Oh my God.
So I went to Books Galore and I bought one book. So we'll talk about that in a second. And then we came back to Halifax and we had time for another day of kind of fun activities and like the lake. And then we dropped her off at the airport that night. And so I've been sleeping in the Halifax apartment. I mean, that was just yesterday, just for today. So it's been busy. It's been like really full on, but in a really, really fun way. Her visit was so nice. And yeah, I've spent today catching up on emails and trying to like remember what my job is. It's been so busy with Kaylee's visit, Maureen's visit, the miniature truck, and like all of these other things that have just sort of been like really time consuming, not just like a little bit time consuming, but like full day time consuming. I'm like, I have a job I need to do.
I've got emails to respond to.
Seriously. Part of my job is the podcast though, and those episodes have kept coming out, so I am very happy about that.
Yeah, we've nailed it.
Nailed it. So speaking of our book podcast, let's talk about some books.
All right.
Shall we start with a book haul?
Oh, that's always a fun place to start.
Right? How about I start us off? Because I only have one little book.
Okay. My books, like, I bought 2 books, and together they are the most unhinged book haul I think a person could have, so.
I'm so excited. I don't even know why I bought this. You know? So maybe this is going to be our worst book haul ever.
Or best.
Maybe best. So basically, like I mentioned, we were up in the valley and I was like, maybe there's when we're on our way back to Halifax, I could hit up one more shop and that would be like really nice. And we looked around and there was this Books Galore I'd never been to. So we went to it and yeah, I don't have too much to say about it because it was a classic used bookshop.
Oh yeah.
It's in a strip mall. And it was mostly and largely mass market paperbacks. They stored them in some cool ways, like in crates and stuff. And so it looked neat.
Yeah.
But it was just one of those shops where, God, I mean, we all know this. I just know that we all know this. You walk into a certain kind of bookshop and you instantly know you're not going to find anything.
Yeah, right? I know exactly what you mean. I had the same experience on the weekend.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not that you don't like the bookshop. Any bookshop is a good bookshop, right? But I also am just like, oh, okay, this one isn't like my kind of books that I'm looking for. But they did have other stuff, and they had a pretty decent, actually, literature classic section, which is my favorite section to go to in used bookshops like that, because very often you will find a cool edition of something
100%.
that either you don't own or you already own but want to get a cool version of. And that is what happened to me. I found this really cool edition, and it's so silly that I bought it. The reason I bought it was because it was $3.
Yeah.
It's silly that I bought it, though, because I literally just bought this book a couple months ago.
Oh.
Because it had a cool edition.
Uh-oh.
So I don't know why I bought an old cool edition when I just bought the cool new edition.
Oh, that's
but
funny.
anyways, I have this neat edition of By Grand Central Station, I Sat Down and Wept by Elizabeth Spart.
Cool. Maybe you could give it to me. Plot twist.
Right, though? Like,
That's
it's
such
really
a cool edition.
slim and small, and I like the typography. It feels
I like
very
that too.
90s. When was it published? Let's see. This edition was published in 1986. I feel that it's got this. I was feeling early 90s. It's late 80s, but yeah, it's got that kind of vibe.
Yeah.
That I really, really like. And I like how slim it is. Anyways, I bought the hell out of it.
You sure did.
I also want to support all the bookshops that I can if I am there. And for a couple of dollars, I'm like, yeah, come on. And my brother bought some books, and I think Maureen bought a book. So yeah, it was nice to show up to a little used bookshop, buy a bunch of books, and get the heck out of there.
So cute.
All right, what about you? What did you get?
Well, I ordered a couple of books online because I had a gift card. And I was like, I have a fairly extensive wish list on Indigo that I'm like, you know what? I really want these, but I'm just going to hold off for a while. But I finally reached the tipping point with these two books. I was like, these are the books I think I want the most. And so I'm just going to buy them. But It was very funny opening the package and seeing them together. I was like, these books could not be more opposite. And I'm going to show you the first book, and then I want you to guess what you think the next book is going to be. I just want to see what wavelength you think it is. So the first book I got is 84 Charing Cross Road by Helene Hamp. Because I have been wanting it ever since you reviewed it. And then our buddy Olivia of Stories for Coffee bought it and read it and loved it. And I was like, okay, this is like a lot of people telling me I need to get this book. And I really love this edition I got. It's like a bunch of books on a bookshelf, and it just looks very quaint.
That's the version I sell on the truck.
I figured it would be because this is the only one I could find from Canada that was nice.
Yeah.
So that was my first one, and I'm very, very excited for that. And I know I'm going to mashed potato the hell out of it and just wait for that perfect moment to read it because I'm so excited to read it. But yes, so as that is like possibly the cutest, coziest, happiest little book ever, what do you think the second book I ordered is going to be?
That's interesting. Okay, so it's definitely a book I've heard of.
Oh yeah.
Okay, and it's a backlist title.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it came out in, let's see if I can find. It's a backlist title that I've not been able to find used because it's kind of uncommon or people are hanging on to it. It was published in 1991.
91.
I'll give you a hint. I watched the movie version of this book I think last year, and it was one of my favorites.
Okay, I was gonna say something Stephen King, like something slashery, horror-y.
You're in the right zone.
A movie that you watched and you can't find a used copy. I don't know.
It's okay.
I can't think of it. What is it?
American Psycho.
I feel like if I thought harder, I could have gotten to that.
Yeah. So American Psycho is the book that ever since I watched the movie, I have been lusting after this book. Like every time I go to a thrift store or used bookstore, I go looking for it. And my local used bookstore had it on a shelf like behind the counter once. And I was like, oh, is that American Psycho? And they were like, yeah, it's a new copy. And I was like, ah! And so I didn't buy it. But I had this gift card, so I was like, I have no reason not to. Like, why am I holding out on myself here? Like, I want it so bad. So now I just went ahead and bought it. So that's my unhinged little book haul. I got a murdery book and a happy, cozy, happy book. So
that's really cool. I also ordered a book online, and I believe that it has arrived at my house, but I'm not sure. And it is Slow Dance by Rainbow Rowell. Remember that was one of my anticipated.
Yeah.
Yes, so we'll have to wait and see if that has actually arrived or not. I also realized I didn't explain this cover at all for By Grand Central Station. I maybe should, since we literally this is an audio only episode. It's a very small little paperback. It's all black except that it says Elizabeth Smart along the top in yellow, and then in white it says By Grand Central Station I sat down. All of that is in Times New Roman, classic font. But then in and wept is handwritten.
Whoa.
To really emphasize the weeping part.
Yes.
So it's one of those cool covers that is just text.
I love that.
Okay.
So cool.
All right. Well, that is a really random haul. Look at us go. Collecting things we just don't need.
No, that's not true. I definitely needed those books.
You definitely needed them because you were like, you've been lusting after them for ages. Finally, you got to acquire them.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, I didn't need this one, but I got it anyway, and I'm very excited that I own it.
Who cares?
Okay, should we talk about what we're currently reading or about what we read this week?
Ooh, let's go read. Because I feel like since it's been a couple of weeks since we did an update, I really want to know what you've read. I feel like I have no idea what you could have possibly read, and I also feel like I conquered a beast.
Oh, I think I know what you're alluding to.
Yes.
But maybe I'll get us started. I read 4 things that I'm going to review for you, and I'm going to review them in quick fire lightning round.
I love it.
Because honestly, I don't have that much to say about any of them.
Okay.
The first one is Food School by Jade Armstrong. Jade Armstrong is a non-binary cartoonist raised in Almont, Ontario, who now lives in Toronto. They worked as a background painter in television for 4 years before committing full-time to comics. Their debut middle-grade novel was called Scout is Not a Band Kid, and Food School was released on April 15th, 2024 by Conundrum Press here in Nova Scotia. I really liked this one.
Okay.
And if you're into graphic novels and you can get your hand on this one, I do recommend it. It's about our main character who is going to what they call food school, which is basically a center for helping people with eating disorders.
Okay.
And they have this eating disorder that they need help with, and it's about the process of going through food school and making friends there, how this all affects their relationship, how this affects their self-esteem. But it's just really beautiful. Like, I love the illustration style. It's actually, really like, surprisingly cute for the subject matter. But really expressive and really emotive. It's all done in blue, which is cool. And you do get to talk to different characters that are at the food school, and you're seeing how like their eating disorders affect them and their lives and how they ended up there. The only thing that like I didn't like about this is how short it was.
Yeah, it's tiny.
I really wish it's really tiny. I really wish that the author had been given kind of the go-ahead to make it bigger, because I think it could have gone even deeper. It's not that I need to go deeper necessarily. Like, it definitely works at this length, but it's just so good that I was like, give them a full-length thing. Like, do a big thing.
Right. Maybe the next one.
Yeah, so I looked them up. Their next book that's coming out is a middle grade book.
Ooh,
so I will probably skip out on that one, but I'm going to keep my eye on Jade Armstrong because I really like that one. Okay, the next one that I read is It Took Luke, Overworked and Underpaid. Did I talk about this one?
No. I don't know what that is.
That's funny. I bought this one, I think, with Kaylee Hyde, and it's a graphic novel. It's got 4 different artists on here, so I guess I will read all their names. Mark Bouchard, Bailey Underwood, Micah Myers, and Jasmine Walls. It Took Luke, Overworked and Underpaid started as a Kickstarter project in 2020 and raised more than $14,000, fully supporting the project. It was re-released in 2022 as a new hardcover with a new cover from Oni Lion Forge Publishing Group. It was created by Mark Bouchard and Bailey Underwood, lettered by Micah Myers, and the cover was done by Bailey Underwood. This is a graphic novel closer and more akin to comic novels or comic books, you know, like more in that side of the God, it's so interesting, like comics versus graphic novels. It's all the same world, obviously. It's illustration, but this is more on the comic book side. I saw this at Venus Envy, which is this really great queer bookshop and like sex positive shop here in Halifax that I just take everyone to because I know that it's such a unique shop.
Yeah.
And it has such a great selection of books. Like they feature a lot of queer authors and stuff like that.
Nice.
And they have zines and everything. So anyways, I saw this one and I thought that looks cool and weird. I bought it. It was cool and it was weird.
Yeah.
And basically, I love the theme, and I like exploring this theme, which is how stressful you find your job.
Ooh.
So in this book, the main character really wants to quit their job.
Yeah.
They work as an exterminator, and you find out that they're like we're clearly living in a post-apocalyptic version of Earth.
Yeah.
Where for some reason, it kind of reminds me of, even though I haven't read it, Severance by Ling Ma, where it's like you're still at work in an apartment building, but there's a zombie apocalypse going on.
Yeah.
It's like this person, like there's still some form of a society going on and people are showing up to work at their office, but there's also these massive monsters that keep showing up and people have to call the exterminator. And so they work as an exterminator and they show up to kill these monsters. And so it is a very slashery thing. The whole thing is just in gray and white, except for blood, which is in like this pinkish red. It looks really cool. And it was really exciting and fun. Like the action scenes and the illustration style is really beautiful. I just felt like it didn't go very deep. Like it, obviously the main character is dealing with a lot of trauma from their job, from having to like do all of this gore and violence all the time, but they're also just I think the joke of it, sort of like Metamorphosis, this is clearly a long running theme, but like in Metamorphosis, our poor hero wakes up as a bug and his first concern is that he's going to be late for work. Right?
Yeah.
And so it's kind of the suspension of disbelief where we're exploring this theme of how much stress work causes in our lives. So this is the same theme where it's like, it doesn't matter what your job is. It could be the most stressful job. It could be ridiculously stressful, like destroying monsters. But still, like, the things he's complaining about are his boss being really mean to him and him not finding much fulfillment at work and stuff. So I like the theme. If you're into, like, slashery stuff, or if you have someone in your life that, like, likes reading comics and stuff, I do recommend it, but I didn't love it. It's not going to be like a book that I recommend.
And what's it called
I'll probably never talk about it again. It's called It Took Luke.
Ooh,
It Took Luke.
Title.
Yeah, the monster takes a character named Luke.
Okay.
Okay, the next thing I read is The Gift by Zoe Mauve. Did I talk about this one ever?
No.
I don't even remember what's going on in my life anymore. Okay. This is another graphic novel, also by this press, Conundrum Press.
Zoe Mauve is a comics artist originally from Toronto who is now based in Montreal. She studied visual arts at Concordia University, and in 2016, her book, July Underwater, was a recipient of the Best English Comic at the Exposine Awards. The Gift was published in 2021 by Conundrum Press.
Conundrum Press I just found out about, and I think I own a couple of other things by them, but they're like a cool graphic novel press here in Nova Scotia.
Oh, that's sick.
I know, and they published Food School. So that's why I like Food School so much. So then I was like, I'll try another thing by them.
Yeah.
And I picked this one up. What will I say about The Gift? So basically, it's kind of like, not an alternative history, but like like a reinterpreted history of Anastasia of the Romanov family. Yeah. And you basically join her when she's little and she's in her palace, and she's like, you meet her when she's born, and she's just kind of narrating her life, and you're quickly going through her life, and then you see her being kidnapped by everything that's going on in Russia at the time. And then, if you don't know, if you haven't heard this, the Russian history, basically she was part of the imperial family, the royal family there, and they all are murdered by the communists that go in Russia. And so it's like a really tragic, horrible story. And so I thought it was really interesting, this kind of like slightly reimagined take on it. And in it, she is given a camera and she's taking photos of her family. It was really beautiful and it was really touching. And if you're really into the Romanov family and like that whole lore, I think you would love this.
Nice.
And I also think the illustration style is so beautiful. It's very washed out and very, like, a lot of negative space and a lot of emptiness, which really goes with the theme.
Yeah.
Very, very pretty. But I also felt with this one, like, it didn't take me anywhere deep.
Yeah.
Like, where were we going? And I totally get it. That's hard to do with a graphic. I read a lot of graphic novels. And this is, like, the biggest problem with graphic novels, is that a lot of the time the author-illustrator has a hard time really getting deep. And I think it might be because, like, you don't have any exposition.
Yeah, it's all visual, so it's very hard.
It's all visual and dialogue. And that's why it's hard. But that is what it is. Like, there are graphic novels that do it. Ballad for Sophie, Sheets by Brenna Thumler, Laura Dean Keeps Breaking Up With Me. Like, these are books that have a plot, have the beauty of the illustration, but then also have this bigger message that really goes deep. I love graphic novels, and I loved Food School. I really recommend that one. And I'm glad I read the other two. They were interesting, but not new faves.
Okay.
All right, and the fourth book that I read is Walking in the Woods by Professor Yoshifumi Miyazaki.
Yoshifumi Miyazaki is a retired university professor, researcher, and the deputy director of Chiba University's Center for Environment, Health, and Field Sciences. He has published several books on the effects and benefits of forest therapy, and the concept is spreading with dozens of forest therapy centers now in existence and growing in Japan. Walking in the Woods was first published in English in 2018 and translated by WeDoJapan.com.
That's right, Raeleen. I read it.
Oh, I'm so glad. I can't wait to hear about it.
It was really good. I enjoyed it. And I was really relieved because obviously you bought 3 copies of this for you and your friend. So I was like, oh my God, imagine if I hate it. This is going to be so unfortunate.
Okay, well, this is happy news.
Yeah, so thankfully I didn't hate it. And I did like it. And I did enjoy it. And I did take some really interesting knowledge from it. I feel that I learned some stuff. I read it with a pen in hand because I was enjoying highlighting and underlining things that I was learning and figuring out. What did I circle over here? Oh yeah, that's funny. We conducted what I don't know what this one is. I just flipped to a random page. We conducted our experiments using an arrangement of unscented pink roses, but it is likely that all fresh flowers have the same effect. That's so I think I remember underlining that because I thought that was so funny. They're like, we believe probably all flowers will have the same effect, but we haven't proven it on all flowers, so we can't say that we do.
Amazing.
Okay, so basically this really is an introduction to the concept of Shinrin-yoku, which is forest bathing, as the English translation. And it's specifically through the lens of Professor Yoshifumi Miyazaki's science. So basically, they're a scientist. He works out of, Chiba University. And he does research about forest bathing. And he was the first person to ever do a study about forest bathing. And basically he was saying that, like, yeah, it was fantastic. I think it's right at the beginning, so maybe I can just read you this line. Yes. I would like to explain how I came to be a forest therapy researcher, starting with my early life. I was born in 1954, and from my earliest memories, I've always loved nature. When I was 9 years old, we moved to a house with a garden, and I came into contact with soil for the first time. My father loved plants, and I can remember helping him with jobs in the garden, such as replanting trees. Fast forward to getting into university and stuff, he wants to understand. He's like, I have this intuitive understanding that when I'm in nature, I feel better. And he's like, and I think most people feel that. Like when they're in nature, totally. When they're in the woods, when they're walking through a forest, you feel better. But being a scientist, he's like, that's not anything. He's like, you can't, that's not empirical. That's not feeling. Yeah. It's just a feeling. So he's like, I want to prove it. I want to understand, like, is this actually happening? And so he starts conducting studies on do we actually feel better? Yeah. And listen, the research is in the freaking book. We do. We really do. We definitely do. But what was also fascinating, Raeleen, is that, like, it doesn't take that much. It's like 15 minutes in the woods. And you have, like, you feel better. Your body systems feel better for, like, up to a week. Whoa. It lowers all sorts of different stressor markers, and he goes into detail in the book about, like, how they measure stress. And there's these 4 different ways that they can measure for stress. And one of my favorite parts of the book was reading the experiments that they did. Yeah. And he was like, we wanted to, like, measure, does walking through the woods make you feel better? Well, no one had done these studies, so I had got to invent them. And he's like, I remember spending months thinking about, like, how do we study that? Yeah. And so he was like, basically, I mean, I'm really shortening it, but basically they had, like, a bunch of people, It was over 700 people.
Whoa.
And they set up all these experiments throughout all of Japan. He's like, because we wanted to test it in different forests and different cities. But they would basically have two groups of people at the exact same time. One group would be walking through the forest, and they'd be measuring all these levels before and after and during. And then at the exact same time, another group of people was walking through the city, and they were marking all the same markers. And then the next day, they would do the reverse and see, like, how, because anyways, there's all of these scientific reasons, like, why he was like, we wanted to make sure that we weren't just getting, like, results that were skewed because it was someone's first time doing an experiment. Right. So that's why we do half of the group backwards and all these things. So interesting. Also so interesting to learn, like I said, like, it doesn't take that much. So having flowers in your house, proven that it makes you feel better. Having houseplants, or even just having a view. Like, one of the studies he talks about is they did a study. It wasn't him. It was a different researcher did a study of people getting, like, healing at a hospital. Yeah. And the people that had a view of forest or of nature healed faster and left the hospital faster than people who didn't have a view of forest and stuff like that. And, like, his theory is that we evolved to live in nature. So much of nature gives our body all these clues that we're safe and we're content, and the smells are good for us, and the sights are good for us, and there's this whole thing about touching bark. And he was, like, also talking about just having more wood in your house, which was really interesting. He did a whole study about treated wood versus untreated wood. Whoa. And so basically wood that's just, like, an actual piece of wood versus a piece of wood that has varnish on it or that has a plasticky coating on it or whatever. If it has a coating on it, it will visually it'll still make you feel good, but touching it will not make you feel good. You get none of the smells from it, and so it may as well be plastic. But having real wooden furniture or wooden artifacts or wooden art or all of those things will make you feel better.
So interesting. And that's reminding me, actually, when we were at the lake, it smelled so strongly of cedar, and it was so beautiful, and it, like, uplifted us so much. So I'm like, this is not resonating with me.
He went into a whole thing about, like, essential oils, because essential oils are actually made from trees, like what you can get, like, actual cedar essential oil. I actually
had that going yesterday. It's funny that we're talking about this.
He was talking about how good it is, like, how it can be really good for you, because those things, like, it's all these different ways to incorporate nature into your life, and, like, the best way is to spend more time in nature and more time in the woods. But there's all these other things that you can do, and he goes into, like, what are the different ways that you can do them. Like, you could do hammock time, he calls it.
Ooh, that sounds lovely.
Or forest yoga, or forest meditation, or just going on a walk, or just sitting. And he talks about, like, just sitting in nature versus walking through nature. Walking through nature is better for you. Like, it like, shows all these markers for stress more. But just sitting in nature for a while does also do it. Not as much, but it still does it. So if you just want to go and sit for a while, he's like, you should. So I found it really interesting. I read it in just a few hours. I, like, basically read it in one sitting, and I really recommend that if people do check out this book, that they do the same. And here's why. First of all, I feel like I just, like, got washed with the information, and it's all within me now, and I don't need to, like, dawdle on it for a while. I need to just, like, consume it, understand it. It was kind of quick, and now I can just act upon it. But the second thing is that it was there was two big problems with the book. I think that there was a massive editing problem. I haven't read a book like, at first I thought it was the translator, but I think it was the editor. I think that it needed to be edited more. I think it needed to be way shorter.
Really?
Because
it's already short.
Because
that's funny.
I know it is really. It's only 177 pages, but it was quite repetitive. That's kind of the second problem. They're both one problem. It was quite repetitive at certain points this is why I was like, is this the translator? Like, maybe in the original Japanese, just based on how it was written and the context and the style of writing, maybe it wouldn't have come off as repetitive, but, like, in this direct to English translation, it comes off as quite repetitive. So I couldn't tell. But then just like the farther I got with the book, I was like, no, you know what? If I was editing this book, which is so presumptuous of me, oh my God, but here I am. If I was editing this book, I was like, there are huge sections I would cut. Because we basically already said this 3 times. Why are we saying it again? Why is he allowed to say this again? He's already said it twice. Chop it, chop it, chop it. Like, I think this would be a stronger book if it was 120 pages. Yeah. Like a way stronger book. And I would be putting it in everyone's hands if it was 120 pages. Right. But it's not. It's 177 pages. And 50 of those pages, I'm like, I don't know if they really needed to be there. I felt like it was pretty repetitive and kind of going in circles. And you can just skim it and just kind of skip that part and be like, okay, I already read that. Or whatever. But it was a little bit, I was like, this could have been so great. And instead it was just good. Yeah. So that's my one qualm with it. But I still recommend it, and I still think that you'll enjoy it. And there's one other forest bathing book that's kind of like the other big one by Dr. Zheng Li, I think was the name. And that's the one I'm selling on my truck because I couldn't get a hold of this one. Okay. And in the back, because there's so many notes and so many citations, which was one thing I really liked. Like, it really felt like this book backed itself up and was like, we did studies, and here's a link to everything I'm ever mentioning it. So you could really follow through and go to the next thing. But he's worked with the other guy who wrote the other big book. Like, the other guy is all over this guy's citations, and I bet you this guy's all over the other guy's citations. So I do want to check out that other book someday. But I enjoyed this one, and it really made me want to go in the woods. And also, like, reading it the day after I went to the lake, I was like, it's true, though. When I was in the lake, I felt so content.
Right? I was like, the whole time you were talking, I was thinking about that. I was like, yeah, I went swimming on Saturday, and I have felt like more calm these past few days, like just being in the lake and then like sitting in the, like, we had to walk a decent ways through the forest to get like to the lake and then to get back to the car, so there was a good like half hour there and back of just walking through the woods, and it was lovely. I saw more of my favorite witch's hair lichen. Made me so happy. It gives me like a rush of joy every time I see that lichen now because it's just so pretty.
I love that. Well, that's what I read. 4 things. I feel pretty good about it.
Wow, you should feel good about that. You read a lot.
Pretty good. What about you? I have a guess about what you did.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of obvious what the behemoth that I'm talking about is because I was reading it for the past, month. But the book I finished is A Dance with Dragons by George R.R. Martin. George R.R. Martin is a 75-year-old writer born in New Jersey in 1948. His career started in 1970 when he was selling sci-fi fantasy short stories to magazines, and from 1973 to 76 he worked as a tournament director for the Continental Chess Association. To supplement his income around this time, he also taught at Clark University, instructing English and journalism courses. He then spent many years working as a writer for television before eventually returning to writing literature with A Game of Thrones, which was published in 1996. A Dance with Dragons is the 5th and most recent book in the Song of Ice and Fire series, with fans anxiously awaiting The Winds of Winter and one day, maybe, A Dream of Spring. I finally finished it, which was so exciting. I think it was last weekend. I kind of just like blasted through the last, 150 or whatever pages because I was like, I'm just kind of ready for it to be over at this point, honestly. Yeah. So I will say it's not my favorite of the series, and obviously there's not too much I can say about it without, getting into details about the books and stuff. So this is book 5 in a series, but basically I would say I love the first 3 books in this series. I feel like the first 3 books are very, very strong. Book 4 was quite good as well, but then this one has been my least favorite so far, unfortunately. So what kind of happened with these two is that book 4 and 5 are basically one giant book that got split into 2, and so they like, what he did, or I don't know who decided, but they split up a bunch of the characters' chapters. So Game of Thrones, all the books are told through many different perspectives. Each book has maybe like 12 perspectives or something. There's like, 5 really main characters, and then they throw in lots of random side characters. And I found that this book had so many side characters for some reason. Like, I feel like it had more than usual. Like, it had Daenerys, it had Jon Snow, but there was not really a lot of other big players and so I found that there was just a lot of chapters that I was like, I don't even really know who this person is, like I don't really care. And even the characters that I did care about, like there just wasn't really a lot going on in this book. It was really weird. It felt like there was a lot of filler. There were a lot of chapters where at the end of it I was like, what was even the point of that? Like I didn't even feel like there was like any strategic moves happening or anything. Like it wasn't even just no action. It was just like truly it felt like nothing was happening. So it was a little disappointing in that way. Like it did have some, like there was one section probably about halfway through where like 10 chapters in a row were like really exciting, and I was like, oh, this is great, we're like ramping up to something, and then it kind of just like died back down again. I was like, what? So while I was still like enjoyed the book, I didn't love it, like not even close. So it was a little bit of a drag, which sucks because it was like 1,000 pages long, so it was a little bit of a chore, unfortunately. But at this point, I'm still like with everyone else kind of hoping for the Winds of Winter. Like I am definitely going to keep reading the books if they ever come out. I actually set a Google alert for George R. R. Martin, so I get little emails like every day, because obviously everybody is constantly talking about George R. R. Martin and how he hasn't written this, like he hasn't released this book yet. So every day I get a little update that's like, oh, here's someone else who's mad at George R. R. Martin. Nope, here's another event he went to, and here's another book he's publishing soon instead of that one. So that's kind of a fun
can't believe thing. He has the confidence to show up anywhere.
I know.
Like I would not be able to show my face at that point.
Yeah, he's pretty shameless. He seems to just be like, whatever, this is how it's gonna be. But it was interesting actually too when I was
shameless is the word for it, because I would be so ashamed.
Oh, I know.
That's the word. I'd be ashamed, and then I would either just say I would have to do a press conference where I'm like, I would like to announce that I'm never going to finish this series. And I know that is the saddest thing you've ever heard.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to do it. Here's what happens to everyone, okay? And then I would just tell you out loud. I would just tell you what happens to everyone and hang up my hat. And then I could go to conferences or whatever.
Yeah.
But I couldn't just keep like being a celebrity.
I know.
Oh, that infuriates. That's crazy.
I know. And just like, he's been so inconsistent with what he's been saying. It's like you just now at this point now he's like, oh yeah, I've written like 1,300 pages, and we're like, what? No, you haven't. Like,
I just clicked on the Winds of Winter on Goodreads, which for some reason has a Goodreads with over 12,000 ratings.
Whoa.
Which is so funny. It has a 4.39 on Goodreads, which is, this book does not exist.
That's hilarious.
And there's this really funny review that this person keeps updating. So, can I read this to you? This
Please.
is from Jesse. They say, I have this plan that when this comes out in 2015, I'm going to drop my child, by then age 4, off at Grandma and Grandpa's house, get myself a hotel room, and do nothing but read this for 3 days straight. Then updated. Update. Alas, as 2015 begins to fade, I come to the realization that my plan will never come to fruition. It was a good plan. I'll miss the plan. Maybe 2016? Update. 2016 is half over. At this point, I'm pretty sure when I purchase this book, it's going to be a page that says, just watch the show, followed by 600 blank pages. Update. It's 2017. I give up. Update. It's now 2020. And it's so horrifying. And I return to this hopeful snapshot of my optimistic youth from time to time, to wonder what it must have been like to be so innocent. Alas. Update. Oh, my sweet summer child. Do you remember what it was like to have such hope, such confidence? 2015. It was going to be your year. But as summer of 2022 fades and the leaves begin to fall, it is clear that no one will be reading this book, even now, some 7 years later in 2022. What could have been? And that's their last update. And it's been another 2 years since that. That's so funny.
That is funny. And well, what I learned when I was browsing his Wikipedia page to write my little info bit it's a very large Wikipedia page, first of all, but I saw one little tidbit that said apparently because like George R. R. Martin has also written in lots of like anthologies and stuff, and so he's worked with a lot of other big writers, and apparently it's what it said on Wikipedia is that all the people he's worked with, all of them have said, if he dies, I'm not finishing the series. So like they have refused. So that was interesting for me to learn too. I was like, oh, I wonder if he has a plan. Like, so that's just an interesting little tidbit. It could just end and
that is
never
so
continue.
Interesting.
Yeah,
because that happened with Frank Herbert. He died while writing Dune.
Yeah, and
his son
Robert Jordan as well. The Wheel of Time series that Brandon Sanderson finished.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's another one.
Oh, Brandon Sanderson finished that?
Yeah, he wrote the last like 3 or 4 books of that series. Brando Sando.
That's so interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Jeez Louise, you guys.
So that's that. But yeah, at this point, I'm just really glad that I finally read it. Like, it's been for me
amazing.
like 5 or 6 years in the making, like of me wanting to read it and then starting it and then putting it down. Like, it's been a long journey. So I just feel really good to have done it. And it's one of the books on my 24 and 24 TBR as well. So that felt good to get one of the big chunky ones out of the way. And so after, well, actually, I think probably like when I was still reading that, I also started listening to an audiobook that you don't know about.
Oh.
So I finished a second book, and that book is One of Our Kind by Nicola Yoon. Nicola Yoon is a Jamaican-American author, best known for her young adult novels Everything, Everything, and The Sun is Also a Star. She majored in electrical engineering as an undergrad at Cornell University, but got hooked on writing after taking a creative writing class. She was inspired to write Everything, Everything after the birth of her biracial daughter, wanting to see her child reflected on the page, and her worries as a first-time mother inspired the plot. She was recently interviewed by Seth Meyers about One of Our Kind, where she revealed her inspiration for the book and her writing process. This book has been getting a lot of mixed reviews, let me tell you. And I knew that before I started reading it. Because I was just really excited for it. And it was funny, I asked for this book from Penguin, actually. I was like, oh, I'm so excited about that book. Like, can you send me a copy? And so our buddy Cameron sent me a copy, and I was so happy. And so I went to go add it to my Goodreads, and I was like, oh, it has a really low average rating. That's interesting. Like, I didn't look at that before I asked for it, because basically this book sounded so up my alley. It's pitched as Get Out, the movie Get Out, meets the Stepford Wives. And I was like, I love both of those things. I'm going to love this. And so I will admit, I read a lot of reviews before I started reading it. And I was like, okay, I've got some information, but I'm going to read it now and make my own opinion on it. Mm-hmm. But I have to say, I agree with all of the negative reviews. So, okay, let me start from the top. So this book is about a woman named Jasmine who is married, has a young son, and she's pregnant. Her whole family is Black, and they are moving to this community that's like outside of Los Angeles that has just opened up over the past couple of years. That's called Liberty, and it's this like all Black utopia. There are no white people, no people of any other race that live there. So it's supposed to be this safe space for Black people to live and thrive and all of that. So it sounds really great. And of course, you know, something is going to go wrong, but the setup is really good. So I feel like the setup, like, it could have been such a good book, but the main character just sucked so much. Like, she was such a terrible main character. She is very, very like self-righteous, and she is like a lawyer who like sticks up for the little guy kind of thing. So like she, you know, had a lot of potential as well. Like, everything about this book is like, oh, could have been good, but then. But she's like very, very self-righteous. Like, it's so weird. Like, and I wasn't sure if this was just me like misinterpreting things, but after reading reviews, I'm like, oh no, this was definitely like off and weird. Like, a lot of people have been calling this book anti-Black, which was really scary for me going into it. I was like, oh, okay, like, what am I about to get myself into? But the main character is constantly like judging everyone around her. Like, every character in this book is Black. So every time she sees someone who like has relaxed hair, she's like, oh, that person is no good. Like, I don't want to be friends with that person. Like, she's very judgy. She's very like on her high horse about everything. She's obsessed with watching like videos about police violence and like lynchings, and she like thinks it's crazy that other people don't want to watch them. She's like, I have to watch them because how could you not? We have to like watch all of the atrocities. And so like the whole book is just like obsessed with sadness and brutality. Like, there's no like Black love in the whole book. Like, it's so weird. And so a lot of people are really offended that Nicola Yoon wrote this book, especially like as a Black woman. It's like, what were you thinking? Like, what was the point? And so while I was reading the book or listening to the audiobook, I'm like, there has to be some kind of point. Like, this has to be coming to a message that makes it all worth it. Like, in the movie Get Out, the main character is facing this weird, like, racist agenda, this weird thing. But in the end, like, you know, there is a good ending, and he like overcomes it.
And like, there's justice at the end.
Exactly, there is justice. In this book, it's the opposite of justice. Like, I don't want to say what happens, but the ending is so weird. And it was like, what were you trying to say, Nicola Yoon? Like, and I understand why everyone's offended. Like, I'm offended on behalf of everyone. Like, but like, the one thing that I will say about the book is that it reads like a YA novel. Like, it reads really fast.
That's interesting.
It reads like a beach read thriller, like, but the content is so weird and so like off. Like everything about it just felt off to me, and it was very like heavy-handed. Like it just felt like it was trying to do something and just totally missed the mark. Like it was just off. And so it sucks.
So fascinating.
Yeah, right? Like it's a really, because you think it's going to be a controversial book, but not like for the reasons that it actually is controversial. Like I feel like it's controversial for the wrong reasons, you know? Oh, it's tough. It's tough. But yeah, so I did not like it. Needless to say, I did not like it. And I don't often like talk about the books I don't like, but I felt like I needed to for this one because
you hauled it and
I hauled it, and I do feel like the people need to know like what they're getting into. But yeah, like I said, it does read really quickly. So like if you want a quick read, go for it. But I don't think it's worth the time. There are other thrillers out there. And it also kind of just, the other thing I wanted to say that I forgot about is that it was such a ripoff of those two pieces of media that already exist. It literally felt like fan fiction of the Stepford Wives. They're like, let's throw in a little Get Out like twist.
Damn,
like
this was a disaster.
It was a disaster. I gave it 2 stars, but I think I'm going to change that to a 1. I think this might be a 1-star book. Like I just dislike so much about it. And like while I was reading, like I was listening to the audiobook, right? And I was just constantly out loud being like, what? What? Is this real? Like what is happening? It was so bizarre.
Fascinating.
So bizarre. But I will say, it made me want to rewatch and reread Get Out and the Stepford Wives. So I will be talking about Get Out when we talk in the movie tub later, because I did rewatch that.
Oh, cool.
And it's awesome. Such a good movie.
Okay, nice.
So
That's awesome.
There was a good element to this whole journey. It made me rewatch an awesome movie. So
I'm glad, in a way, it didn't sit on your shelves for super long, kind of building up hype
me
and
too.
you getting excited about it over time, and then you finally read it 2 years later and you're like, why did I have this on my shelf this whole time?
Exactly. It felt like the right time. Like I saved it on Libby, so like when it came in, it was gonna announce it to me, and it did. And so I was like, oh, I'll just listen to this. It was only 8 hours long. And I was excited for it.
That's fascinating.
It's funny that this episode doesn't have video, because I feel like I've been making a lot of crazy expressions while talking about this.
You have been doing some pretty fun expressions. I'm sad that the people have missed out on those also.
I'm just baffled over here. But yeah, on to better things, you know?
That's juicy also, because that's definitely like the least, like that's the worst book you've read in years, I think.
Yeah.
You haven't given a review that fiery.
So much passion. I know. Like usually if I don't like a book, it's just because it's like, oh, I didn't connect with it, or like I was bored. But this was like actively bad. Which sucks to say, because I do like Nicola Yoon's other books. Like I really did enjoy everything.
That's why you got this one.
Yeah, like that's why I went for it, because her books, I find them very easy to read. They're always like interesting plot. And this one, like had potential. It was interesting plot, but it just felt like such a ripoff. It was so weird. I felt like I was reading fan fiction. Ugh. Anyway.
Wow.
I'm reading something better now, so it's okay.
That's wild. All right, well, let's shift and talk about what we're currently reading.
Yes.
All right, well, what I'm currently reading is very similar to what I was saying last week and the week before that. I'm partway through Underground Overground and really enjoying it, but I forgot it, and so that's why I read a bunch of those graphic novels, because I didn't have it with me at the time. I'm still kind of plopping through Western Lane, which I am liking. I don't really know why I paused it, but I'm excited to get back to it and finish it. But the other thing that I'm like really in the middle of and loving is the Agatha Christie just the biography by Lucy Worsley. It's so good, and Lucy Worsley does such a good job reading it. Like I'm loving this audio.
I forgot it was an audiobook. That's so nice.
Yeah, I have it as physical book, and so I have been like flipping through as well, but mainly I'm listening to it as an audiobook and just absolutely loving it. So yeah, so kind of more of the same that I've talked about before. But what about you? What did you start after that disaster?
Well, I'll let you know in a sec. I have a question for you though. So obviously you read a bunch of graphic novels. So are you planning on reading more, with kind of like reading your biographies and things in the background? Is that kind of your plan?
That's my plan right now.
That's good, because you need to catch up, right?
Catch up. My plan is to catch up through graphic novels as kind of I can read a couple a week. Yeah. But then keep doing my biographies, which are big. Yeah. So I have to they're just going to be slow, but I can sneak a graphic novel here and there.
That's a good tactic.
Yeah, that is my plan.
I like that. Well, I'm excited to see what you read next. 6 books next week. We'll see.
Okay.
Well, what I'm currently reading is a book that I have been meaning to read for a long time. It's on my 24 and 24 TBR. I've been saving it for a summertime. Like I keep, every time the summer ends of a year, I'm like, I have to wait till next year. I looked, actually, I have the receipt for this book in it. I bought it in July 2021. So here we are, 3 years later. I'm finally reading it. Valley of the Dolls by Jacqueline Suzanne. I started this a couple of days ago, and I am almost halfway through it now. I spent a lot of time yesterday sitting outside, being outside, like you say, being very happy out there, just enjoying my book. And it was really lovely because yesterday was Monday when we usually record the podcast. Yes. But yesterday, after I had like done my couple of tasks that I always do for the podcast, I was like, I have the whole day. And so I just read a whole bunch, which was really nice. So I really got to get like deep into this book. So I'm really enjoying it so far. This book is about 3 women that I now know. It's got kind of 3 main characters. There's different chapters for each of them. The first chapter, though, is really long. So I thought I was just going to be following the first main character, whose name is Anne. But we've got Anne and Jennifer and Neely. And they are these 3 women who are all living in New York. Anne has just moved to New York from a small town where she just wanted to escape the life that was kind of expected of her, where she was going to, get married at 17 or whatever. And just pop out a bunch of babies. She was like, no thanks. So this book came out in 1966, but it's set in 1945, which I didn't realize. I thought it was going to be set in the 60s, but it's actually set even further back. So it's like right after World War II. And so it's very interesting because of all that. But it's basically about these women who are living in New York, and not all of them like want to get into showbiz, but it's kind of about how all 3 of them become like intermingled with the showbiz in New York. So so Anne kind of like, she gets to New York and she just wants to work in an office, and so she gets a job at a law firm just as a secretary, which I thought was so funny because that's what I do. So I was like, oh, this is fun. But it's like an entertainment lawyer, like he kind of like manages entertainment people and stuff. So that's how kind of she gets in, and she like meets other people. Like one of them wants to be an actress and another one wants to kind of like get into singing and dancing or whatever. So that's kind of like what the main plot is. But it's kind of just like fun. Like I would call it like gossipy kind of vibes almost. Like it's just like women, just kind of having a good time in New York and like doing the showbiz thing. So that's kind of all I've like experienced so far, but it's very fun. Like I'm definitely really enjoying it. It's definitely just like a fun book though. Like as of right now, there's not much like depth to it. It's mostly just like, this is a good time. But I'm intrigued to see where it goes, because on the back it says it's about 3 women who like reach the peak of the entertainment industry, but then there's nowhere to go but down. So I'm like, this is interesting. Like something is going to shift at a certain point. So where I'm at, everybody's still happy, but I don't think they're going to be happy for long.
Have you seen Last Night in Soho?
Yes.
Did you like that movie?
Not really.
Me neither.
I wanted to like it.
For some reason I was... Pardon?
I wanted to like it so bad, but...
Yeah, same. There's so many things about it that, like, I like Anya Taylor-Joy. I like Matt Smith. I really love Edgar Wright. I wanted to like it, and I just didn't. But anyways, I was just imagining, like, 60s showbiz. And that came into
that's
my
definitely
mind.
The aesthetic. That's the right vibe.
Yeah.
But, yeah. That's pretty much all I've got to say about that. I'm enjoying it, and we'll see where I go from here. But, yeah, it's very easy to read,
exciting.
So I'll probably have finished it by next week for sure.
I'm really excited that you're doing some mashed potatoes here, Raeleen.
I'm trying to bang them out. It's about time.
Yeah. All right. How about we shift over into the mailroom? All right. I've pulled out some fun comments from YouTube land.
Okay.
Let me read you a couple here, Raeleen. Somebody said, Miranda Nyack 4633 said, Ariel's kind of personalized recommendations for people with the book truck reminds me so much of sibling Dex and their personalized tea in A Psalm for the Wild build. And I like this comment because I agree, and that's why I stock that book on my shelves, because I'm on the truck.
Perfect.
Like, it feels really meta because I like have the thing on the truck and I remind myself of that book, and it's just like, it's really, really fun.
Funny.
Okay, we got this comment from my friend Jen Campbell. We haven't had Jen on the podcast, have we?
No, we should.
That's crazy. That's crazy to me, yeah. She commented and she said, I didn't listen to Books Unbound when in labor, because if you remember, we had that comment from someone who did. She says, I didn't listen to Books Unbound when in labor because C-section, though perhaps I should have blasted it through the speakers in the operating theater, but I did listen to it the night after giving birth in the hospital. I can't remember what episode it was because I was delirious, super ill with brain injury, it turns out, all better now, yikes. But even though I don't remember the episode, I do remember that it very much calmed me as always, so thanks, pals.
Aww.
That's just amazing. Jen, thank you so much for that comment. That is insane to think that somehow, in the tiniest little way, I was a part of that insane experience. Right? That's crazy to me. And just super, super, super congrats on your birth. That's so exciting. But then I got this comment, or we got this comment, from @Irene Schoonerwinkle 8738. Whoa. Ariel, I don't know if you've already mentioned this book or if you've bought it already, but I found the perfect book about a moving bookshop you should add to your bookmobile. It's a children's book called Franklin's Flying Bookshop, written by Jen Campbell. And it's about a dragon who loves books and decided to start a flying bookshop bringing books to people. And yes, I have ordered it for the truck because it is perfect. That's hilarious. So I love seeing those two comments next to each other in the YouTube comments. It was just wild. It was so wild. Okay, Elise North says, congrats on a successful first book truck event, Ariel. Suggestion, get a director's chair. It's like a tall camping chair. Yeah. My mom does a lot of markets and she swears by this. And I think this is such a great idea. So I wanted to thank you, Elise, and I should do that. Because the chair situation is interesting. I've had camping chairs and I feel like I'm way too low. Yeah. And then I thought about bringing like a wooden chair, but then I'm like, is that crazy? That's a little director crazy. Chair. Yeah. The director chair I think is the perfect middle ground. Amazing. Okay, we got this comment from Emily Clark who says, hi Ariel and Raeleen, fun story for you guys. I bought A Tree Grows in Brooklyn at the recommendation of this podcast, and the version I found is from 1943 and has a label on the front that says, due to the critical paper shortage, this reduced size must be adopted to keep this popular bestseller available to the public. And then in bold it says, every word of the original book is contained in this edition. On the back is a big ad for buying war bonds. So excited to read this tattered gem from the thrift store. I'm also currently reading The Blue Castle and I'm eating it up. Love this podcast and the amazing Rex. Our tastes definitely align. Isn't that so cool?
That's so neat.
That's such what a historical little thing.
Right? That's why I used books, people. Oh,
yeah,
beautiful.
Seriously. That's so cool. Okay, Circle of Leaves says, the downsides of putting the books in the time capsule is that if you genuinely forget what books are in there, you might buy another copy.
What you don't know is I have such an insane brain for knowing what I own that there's no way that would happen. I might forget they're in the capsule, but I wouldn't see it and be like, oh, wow. Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah.
That is funny.
That made me crack up. I think that's really, really funny. Somebody asked me this question. Katie asked, question for Ariel and Bissette Books. Are you going to make this a summer business? Translation, will I have more chances to see the truck? And I was like, I don't know if I fully explained this, but I just thought I would mention that, yes, this is going to be like a thing that I do in the summer. So I'll park this truck at home in the I was trying to say autumn time, pack this baby away and revisit it next summer. But yeah, I got a couple more events before that happens.
Hell yeah.
All right. I think that's all for me right now, Raeleen. What about you? What comments did you find?
Okay. Let's see. I've got one from Carla who says, I always check book reviews after I read the book. I want to know what people think, but only after I read the book myself. And this is in response to our most recent episode, where we talked about lots of reading confessions and stuff. And
yeah.
I thought that was a smart thing because sometimes I read a lot of book reviews before I read books because I'm like sometimes trying to convince myself, like, do I still really want to read this? Is it worth my time? And I like overthink it to the point where it's like, I could have like read half the book by now if I had just started it. So I think that that's a really good tactic. So I wanted to share that. And then We've got a comment from Valentine who says, for Amy number 1, because as you'll remember, there were 3 Amys in our last episode. They say, I have a section on my reading spreadsheet called On the Back Burner. Oh, this is Amy who is reading lots of books at the same time. I have a section on my reading spreadsheet named On the Back Burner where I keep track of the books I've been reading for a few years, mostly history, feminism, general nonfiction books. And I keep the books on my shelves. That way they don't have a huge pile on my nightstand. And I really like that. It's a good tip. It was kind of like the theory I came up with, but it's cool to see that somebody actually does that and it helps. Yes, that's very cool. And then we've got a comment from Sarah who says, loved this ep and especially Lena's little cameo. Can we have another rating bookish thing soon? I request when you thought you had a large chunk of your book left, but the remaining pages are actually an unrelated short story by the same author. So I thought we could just answer that right now. Because usually we curate them for each other specifically, but I like this one. I give that a 10 out of 10. And you know why? Because I've talked about this before. I love the feeling of finishing a book. And so when you start getting to that last chunk, it's often like I'm really excited to finish the book. Even if I'm enjoying it, like I'm just excited to be done so I can like start something new. And so if there's a moment that like cuts short what you thought, you were like, oh, I think I have like 2 or 3 hours of reading left, and suddenly you're done, it's like, hallelujah, I can go read another book. That's so exciting. So I give that a 10.
I want to agree with you.
You don't have to.
If it was you're nearing the end of the book and you realize the last 20 pages or whatever are appendix, are acknowledgements,
yeah,
I would agree with you 10 out of 10. Because you're right. It's like, so unless for some reason it's a very complicated book and you suddenly are like, oh my God, this is not going to have time to properly finish. I'm going to have like a dumb cliffhanger or something.
Yeah.
I guess that would be frustrating. But in most cases, I'd be like, whoa, this is so exciting. I like was nearer to finishing this whole thing than I thought. That's hype.
Yeah.
But I would not feel... So this kind of happened to me with 84 Charing Cross Road, actually.
Okay.
Because I got to the end of 84 Charing Cross Road, and I was like, wait, I don't get it. I still have half of this book to go. And I looked, and I had the sequel in the book. And so to me, it kind of felt like I didn't finish the book, but I was not psychologically prepared to go and read a second book.
Totally.
Like in this one book. I was not going to read that next. So I put it back on my shelf, and I was like, did I read it? I don't know. And so, like, I remember that happened to me with Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. My edition contains The Bottle Imp, a short story by Robert Louis Stevenson. And I got to the end of Jekyll and Hyde, and I loved it, but I was like, wow, that was shorter than I thought. What the hell is this? And then I keep reading, and I'm like, this is a completely different story. Now I have to read this? And then I read it because I wanted to have the complete feeling of having finished the book.
Yeah.
And then I was like, that was a cool story, bro, but what does it got to do with anything? And so for me, it's just like a very confusing flavor to end on, and I don't like. Yeah, so I give it a 5.
I see.
I hate it.
You're almost like compelled to read the next thing.
Yeah,
when you don't want to.
I didn't want to.
That's funny. That's funny. Yeah, I'm just like, nope, don't care. Throw it away.
Yeah, okay. Maybe we should do. Raeleen, maybe we should do a post for the patrons. They should submit us a bunch of rating things out of 10.
That would be great, because I feel like I might have run out of ideas, so that's good.
Yeah, that would be fun.
Okay, that's a good thing. We'll do. Okay, the last one I got was a funny thing that happened in our Discord. So Evie posted, there's some kind of article on CNN, and I'll just read you the title. Massachusetts police on the hunt for stolen Shrek statue. And the subtitle is, it says Shrek is love, Shrek is life, Shrek is missing. And it's this really weird looking statue. Like he looks really ugly. He doesn't really look like Shrek. But what was funny then is that Rin, another one of our patrons, responded to this post in our Discord and just said, the things Raeleen gets up to.
Yep, you're just out there stealing Shrek statues.
It was me. I didn't go to Vancouver that time. I actually went to Massachusetts and stole Shrek. Wouldn't that be funny if I had a Shrek statue in my house and nobody knew about it? How would you know?
That would be amazing. How would we know? That's so funny.
I just love that everybody thinks I'm this like Shrek maniac who loves... I mean, I do love Shrek a lot.
You are a Shrek maniac.
Yeah. Shrek mania.
I think that that's a perfect segue to a final note that I need to make, actually, which we were supposed to do at the beginning of this episode, but we got so busy talking about other things. So, yeah, we'll talk about it here and now, but then we'll also talk about it at the top of next week's episode. We're very excited to announce. This is huge, okay? You guys, on the Patreon now is our next audiobook. So, 2 years ago, we released audiobooks for the Great Gatsby. I mean, you did an audiobook for The Great Gatsby. I got delayed, so I released mine like a year later with Animal Farm. And so we released these on Patreon, and we were like, you know what? Because I had so much extra time to do one, I kind of just took my time and did it with music and everything and put it together as one big file. Originally, we were releasing it like as separate chapters, which is how you did The Great Gatsby. But I just released mine as one big thing and posted it onto our Patreon because that was the original idea. It was for the patrons. But then there was like people who were like, can I just have it as a file? And Patreon lets you do like a digital shop. So we were like, we'll just upload it there and people can have it on the digital shop if they want. And then we're like, wait, we like doing these. Why wouldn't we just do some more from time to time? And so we did. And Raeleen has recorded The Island of Dr. Moreau.
Hell yeah.
CJ, hit that new theme song. So it's fully scored by CJ Bassett and fully narrated by Raeleen Lemay and available now on our Patreon. Raeleen, give us a one sentence on how was the recording experience?
It was fun but difficult because it was written in the 1800s and there's a lot of boat lingo that I did not know how to pronounce. That's my pitch.
Boat lingo.
I had to look up so many pronunciation guides. Like I had a tab open at all times that was like, how do you pronounce schooner? There was so many words.
That's awesome.
So enjoy that.
Well, if you've been meaning to read The Island of Dr. Moreau and you like audiobooks, runtime of 3 hours and 32 minutes, it's available now. So it's $6 on our shop. Or if you're a patron, you can get it for free. And becoming a patron only costs $5. See what we did there?
See what we did there?
You could just become a patron and get it. Just a sneaky little ploy. But you do get the audiobook, which is awesome. And we're really excited about it because we had a lot of fun with working with Maddie to make some beautiful cover art and working with CJ to make some beautiful music. So we feel like we're putting out a cool product into the world. And, you know, it's not a professional audiobook. They're recorded at home. We do them ourselves. We edit them. So it is like your friend, your podcast host, reading you a book. It's not supposed to be a super professional thing. But it is pretty good, quite frankly.
It's as good as I could get it, for sure. I did my best.
That is now available. We're super excited about it. And speaking of Patreon, we are now going to go record our Patreon mini podcast, The Movie Tub, where we talk about the shows and the movies that we've been watching. So we're going to go do that now. Thank you guys so much for joining us for this audio-only episode of Books Unbound. And we'll talk to you next week.
Bye.
Goodbye.